celebrating our 35th anniversary of playing together this year, and the whole time it's been just the two of us. It's just been Patti's voice and what I could do on the guitar. So really, that's the sound. We could talk about the musical influences and say that we're both very derivative of jazz, but on the other hand, there's gospel and there's popular music and there's classical. And we essentially combine everything that we've ever heard and liked, either of us. But on the other hand, if you said the word jazz, that wouldn't in any way evoke what Tuck and Patti sounds like. Mm-hmm. The thing that might come closest is that there are a couple of people who play together all the time that improvise a lot, and that's kind of the sound of us.
I think it just gets deeper because we've gotten better at it. You know, we really, neither of us really felt the need for reinvention or doing the newest, latest thing all the time. I love always listening to different songs, and I love contemporary people, but I don't feel this sort of big desire like I've got to change my look and my hair and all this stuff every few months in order to be relevant. And neither of us have really thought about that. Our focus has always been on the music, and the music for us is sort of like we have this little niche that we kind of live in, and we love this world. And
you can't predict who might come to a show, and you can predict that it's unpredictable, and promoters always comment on that. They're so surprised to see such a diverse audience, age-wise, interest, musical interest-wise, everything. So you never know. But I think people really are attracted by the overarching message of love in our music. And I mean, that's really ultimately what we agreed when we got together that we wanted to put across, to the extent that we have any control of what comes across. And we can imagine that we have that control, and maybe we do or maybe we don't. But still, for both of us, that's kind of our commitment, is to, if we can figure out how to do it, to allow that to come across. So we sort of attract people who would respond to that, I think. I mean, in the old days, it's not, I call it old days, but we used to get emails, and maybe we would write back, and there's some form of a relationship that happens
there were letters
directly.
before that.
Letters before that, fax, all that. But these days it's things like Twitter and Facebook, and we've sort of put both feet into that because it's nice to connect with people.
You have these relationships then with these people because they contact you on Facebook or whatever, and so you have this conversation with them. We just got a gig for Chiang Mai New Year's Eve, and it was a last minute thing, and so I was writing about it, and all of a sudden I was hearing from people from there who were saying, well, are you there? Do you want to come to our club? Would you, what that kind of community gets created, that really, it gets realized. Mm-hmm. In a much different way than back in the day when you got a letter from somebody who was living someplace who felt they'd never ever have the chance to see you. And
we just like dealing direct with people. Mm-hmm. We found that when you get a buffer, which happens with most bands necessarily, because there's, a whole band usually does need some kind of managing. Mm-hmm. But when it's two of us and we're married and we occupy one room and we occupy one car, et cetera, then we're pretty manageable.
But a lot of the bands didn't. Like when we met MJQ and everything, they were saying one person took care of the files, one person took care of this. And we saw that. And early on, we also saw another group that was really, really getting really big in the early 80s or mid 80s, late 80s when all our albums came out. And they lost their manager about a year and a half in, at, of a sort of a peak time. And they had to cancel a lot of dates because no one knew what to do. Mm-hmm. And we were like, we can't do that. The only part I don't like about my job is the logistics. The getting around. In the beginning I was like, yes, I'm playing, but now I'm like, okay.
We don't take for granted what we do, and so we're grateful every opportunity that we have to do it. Mm-hmm. So there have been times when we've played in places that were, where something wasn't working right, but it's still, by the time the music happens, the people are there. We make sure we solve any kind of technical problems, no matter what it takes, and then when it's time for the show, everybody's just supposed to relax and enjoy it and get lost in it, and that's what we're supposed to do. And fortunately for us, we can kind of depend on being able to do that night after night. And we're as grateful as we can be that we get to have that experience.
We also have the kind of career that we will be in the summer festivals or doing something, playing for thousands of people, and then we'll be in a little club someplace in some little town in southern Italy in their jazz club that's down in a cellar that seats 60 or something like that. So they're all different. Mm-hmm. It's like there's sort of everything in between. You know, it's wonderful to have that. I think live is best always.
Mm-hmm.
Like I like our Live in Holland too because it's live concerts. It's right there, and we tend to record a lot that way too. There's not a lot of going back. There's no overdubbing. It's the both of us together and stuff like that. So we keep that, but there's still, it's not the same as the energy and the exchange between the people in the room and you. When we do a new recording, then of course that's part of the show and part of what we're doing. But I always leave room where there's lots of people make requests, or just leave room for spirit because you never know. We're overdue for a CD, but there's been a pretty traumatic few years for me. I've lost, you know, family members, and there's been a lot of illness in our family and stuff like that. So I just took a moment. I was ready to do a record, and we were still on the road a lot, but I was like, wow, I need a moment. So we're starting one now because it's for our 35th anniversary. That'll be the new CD and all that stuff. So we're due.
Usually it's kind of like a kinetic, or a potential energy suddenly becomes kinetic with these projects. We'll sort of talk about it, talk around it, and almost never talk about what the specifics will be. And then at some point, it's like the day we start, and then you can just see the smoke coming out of our minds and coming off of our house and everything. And then it's nonstop, you know, full tilt until we get it done. And so Patti has this production style where things happen kind of in real time. And of course, when you play a show, it's real time. You don't go back. You can't stop and say, oh, I don't know the song yet. And that's kind of the way we record too. We rehearse and get in there and arrange and get it recorded before we're ready. And she keeps it really on, everything on the edge. Then we come up for air at the end.